Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to compare ChatGPT and DeepSeek round 2. So for a round 2, we forgot, no, I didn't notice that there's a DeepThink R1 here and use DeepSeek-R1 to solve reasoning problems. Okay, so I'm gonna give them a coding problem, so this might not be the best one. Reasoning problem. Okay, so let's try to use that reasoning thing. So we have here um, a prompt that I created here so that our ADHD brothers and sisters can so that we can just go straight to our topic. So our prompt here is generate me a working code for a microservice architecture using Angular version 19, backend for frontend, .Net API using minimal API with fast endpoint, main .NET API using minimal API with fast endpoint with entity framework connected to SQL Server. Use DDD and TDD for coding architecture. Implementing e-commerce application using the following domains. .NET, oh no, product, order item, customer. Okay, so I think that's it. Then use auth0 for its authentication, and also implement using responsive layout. Also implement responsive layout in UI. Okay, so let's see which one is better. Copy this and let's paste this here for ChatGPT and for DeepSeek. Then we're going to put DeepThink R1 here. And since ChatGPT is faster, we're going to click DeepSeek first. We're going to submit DeepSeek first, and then we're going to submit ChatGPT. And ChatGPT will be much faster, I believe. Okay, so it's generating. As you can see here, what is this thing doing? I think ChatGPT died. Hey ChatGPT, are you alive? Are you even alive? Okay, so we're going to click answer in chat instead. Okay, so this is a complex project involving multiple services and technologies. Below is an overview of the architecture and a step-by-step guide on how to implement it. Microservice Architecture Overview. Your e-commerce application will consist of following services: frontend, backend for frontend, main API, database authentication. So this is the project structure: frontend, backend for frontend, main API, tests, docker.yaml. Alright, so our ChatGPT provided a docker.yaml setting up the frontend, Angular 19, style is CSS, routing true, install the auth0, install bootstrap. Then this is correct. It gave us the configuration for auth0. Then setting up the BFF. Then BFF add fast endpoint. Then use JWT bearer for authentication. Configure the authentication. This is our auth0. Then this is the audience. Alright, correct. It didn't give us the course, which is going to give us an error later. So it implemented the main API, product, customer, product, order ID, define the DB context, then configure main API, right, use, and then apply database migration, TDD, connecting Angular to BFF, right, so this is acceptable API for the product service, right, this is acceptable, get, run, conclusion. Okay, so it's missing the course origin configuration for the course in its .NET BFF. Let's see here um, in DeepSeek. Okay, so this is so cool because it gave us its thought process. So okay, let me try to break down how to approach creating this microservice architecture for an e-commerce app. The user wants Angular 19 for the front end, two .NET APIs, BFF, and the main, using minimal APIs and fast endpoints, also DDD and TDD with auth 0 for authentication and a responsive UI. First, I need to outline the structure. The main API will handle product, order item, and customer domains. The BFF will act as a gateway, aggregating data and handling auth 0 authentication using DDD means each domain should have its own bounded context, entities, value objects, etc. TDD requires writing first, test first, so each component should have corresponding unit test. Starting with the main API using entity framework with SQL Server, so I'll need DB context migration, etc. Domain, product order, etc. should have their own entities and configurations. Fast endpoints is used here, so each endpoint will be a class and inheriting from endpoint without controllers. Need to set up the base structure, project structure, maybe using the clean architecture approach within DDD. For the BFF API, it's similar but acts as an intermediary. It needs to communicate with the main API, so maybe this HTTP, it may be using HTTP client, also auth 0 integration here, handling JWT tokens, handling them, validating them, and passing user info to the main API. The BFF will have endpoints that the Angular app hits, which then forwards requests to the main API. Angular frontend, auth 0 integration for login, guards, to protect route services to communicate with the BFF, responsive layout using Flex layout or Angular material with responsive breakpoints, components for products, owners, customers, etc. Testing for .NET, XUnit, or NUnit with MOQ for mocking each endpoint, test each endpoint, business logic, Angular test using Jasmine and Karma, maybe Cypress for end-to-end. Let me structure the code step by step. First, set up the main API and entity framework and fast endpoints. Create the product domain as an example, then the BFF with auth 0 and a sample endpoint. Angular app will with auth 0 setup and a product list component. Wait, the user mentioned TDD, so I should start by writing tests, for example, in the main API, write a test for creating a product, then implement the endpoint. But since the user is asking for code, maybe include the test example in the code snippets. Also, auth 0 configuration both TDD and Angular. The BFF needs to validate the JWT from Angular, maybe using JWT bare middleware. Angular uses auth 0 SDK to handle login and attach tokens to requests. Responsive layout and Angular using Angular materials responsive grid layout. Flex layouts, media queries, maybe a sidebar that collapses on mobile. Connecting the pieces, BFF endpoints call main API using HTTP client. Main API uses Entity Framework Core to interact with the SQL Server, DDD layers, application, domain, infrastructure, but with minimal APIs and fast endpoints. The structure might be flatter, but still generate separate concerns. Migrations, how to handle if migrations in the main API, add a migration initially for product, order, etc. Possible issues, course between Angular, BFF, and main API. See, DeepSeek have found a possible issue, and ChatGPT didn't. So CORS between Angular BFF and API needs to configure CORS properly, also handle authentication tokens correctly between frontend and backend, and backend or frontend to main API if needed. Let me start drafting the code for the main API, a product endpoint with get and post, the product entity, DB context, repository, though with though so to read though with DDD maybe a repository pattern, fast endpoint routing, then the BFF with our corresponding endpoints that calls the main API, Angular service that calls the BFF with auth0 or integration. Include auth0 settings in app settings.json for BFF and environments.ts in Angular. Ensure that the BFF validates the token and passes the user ID to the main API if needed. Testing. Example, XUnit test for the product endpoint, checking if it returns 200 OK. Angular test for the product service. Responsive layout example using Angular material, toolbar, sidebar, and flex layout to adjust based on screen size. I think that's the main flow. Now structure the answer with code snippets for each part, explaining the setup and note the steps to run the project. Include necessary packages and auth0 configuration. Let me provide a structured solution with code examples. Due to spare constraints, I'll focus on key components and their relationships. Solution architecture, e-commerce, Angular client, main API, BFF. For the main API, product entities, UI, so good, man. This is so good compared here, right? So very DDD. This is what I call DDD here, domain driven design, and product here is very flat. Fast endpoints, right? Fast endpoints. Did it create a fast endpoint? How does the structure of the fast endpoint here? Oh man, ChatGPT is lousy, man. Angular BFF. Where is it? Where is your... Yeah, it didn't give us the fast endpoint implementation. Yeah, it didn't give us a fast endpoint endpoint. Yeah, okay, so very good here for DeepSeek. Then BFF API authentication layer. This is good. This using the builder configuration. Oh man, product endpoints. Oh man, this is so good. Product service, auth0s, that service.ts, authentication. Alright, log in, log out, main DB context, testing, responsive layout, main layout button, sidebar, setup instructions. Okay, and then configuration. Right, this architecture provides clear separation of concerns with DDD, JWT authentication with 0, responsive UI layout, BFF patterns for front-end aggregation, fast endpoints for efficient API development, AF core for data persistence, test-driven development for foundation. Alright, so I think we got a winner here in round 2. Round 2, we gave it to DeepSeek, and ChatGPT got destroyed in our round 2. Alright, cool. So that's it, kids. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and see you on the next battle for the artificial intelligence code review, ChatGPT versus DeepSeek. And I believe there's a new challenger from China, and I'll also review that. Right, cool. Thanks everyone. See you on the next video. Bye. Alright, cool. Thanks. Bye bye.